Right. Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Amber Key Edwards. I am here in my home office, very excited to share with you something that I've been working on for a couple of years now, but have kept under wraps because of perfectionism, honestly. It is time for the world to know. Before I open up my presentation and I'll share a screen, it's going to be very informative and very enlightening. I'm talking about trauma-informed leadership. That's something that's not a common thing talked about, so I'm sure you're going to get something out of it. And if not, if you've already heard about it, you'll get a good summary. But I want to invite us to I'm closing my eyes because I want to invite us to get into a restful state. I want to invite us to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And just situate our bodies at, I'm like getting triggered. Situate our bodies in a space of peace, in a space of purpose, in a space of love, of a space of acceptance. I'm doing this as much part for you as for me because for some reason, sharing ideas on the internet is anxiety inducing to me. So this is some content that's not meant for entertainment. It is meant for information sharing. So I do hope you get some information from it. Let me go ahead and jump into sharing my screen. So this is something that I have been, I said, working on. And this came from a traumatic experience that I recently had during pregnancy and postpartum, particularly postpartum. And it got me interested in this concept. Also, my first job led me to consider concepts like compassion, especially when the anti-DEI bill came to hit my state, Alabama, and where I work significantly, which required me to back up from just saying the overt thing and trying to get to something that is underlining it all, which compassion, humility, forgiveness, accountability were some concepts that came up. And so that's what drew me to trauma-informed practices. And then I'm creating, and maybe other people have done it, but I'm doing a trauma-informed leadership. So let's look into this. This is a document I've prepared. I'm trying to equip leaders with the knowledge and tools to create a trauma-informed environment within their organizations. Leaders can foster a more supportive, productive, and resilient workplace by understanding and addressing trauma. Who doesn't want a leader who recognizes that they're leading machines? Oh, no, no, people, right? And so we'll get more into why people and trauma are so important and so interconnected. But trauma is an emotional response to an intense event or series of events. Maybe they weren't all intense, but just a series back to back to back that can have a long-lasting effect on an individual's mental, so the way they think, their beliefs, their values. It can have an effect on people's emotions, um, and their overall their physical well-being, which is horrible, right? And their psychological well-being overall. And the workplace trauma can manifest as reduced productivity, absenteeism, and interpersonal conflicts. This is something that do and practice in the classroom as a leader in the classroom, as a professor leading the new and next generation of leaders. I pay attention to reduce productivity as absenteeism and interpersonal issues when especially if the interpersonal issue is between a student and I, because I'm peace and love. So when I hear rah rah, I instantly think something has triggered their trauma because we don't come in blank slates. Let's continue to build on this introduction. If you're interested, continue this journey with me. Again, this is the practice of getting information, not entertainment. So if that kind of triggers something in you, it triggers me. It triggers me to not be an entertainer and be an educator instead. I think I wish I were entertaining instead, but I do have a value and impact through this. So here we are. Anyways, all right, so we're going to talk about why trauma-informed leadership is important and what the core principles are. And that right there, if that's enough for you, because that's going to be heavy, and a lot of information, that's a good point to just stop and reflect and then come back to this video. This video might be something that you watch over a series of, a month or a week. It depends on your time schedule. All right, implementation, the value of assessing your organization and creating a broad roadmap forward, strategies, measuring sustainability. Let's move forward. So, why trauma-informed leadership? So, this is interesting. So, the concept came from the 1990s, and it was through the Adverse Childhood Experience study. And so, with this study, this groundbreaking research unveiled how early trauma can have long-lasting impacts on health and wellness. And then since then, the field has like blossomed as far as the trauma-informed practices across like healthcare, education, and a little bit into the workplace. And let me provide a little bit more context of this. The Adverse Childhood Experience study found not only that trauma has long-lasting impacts across different areas of our lives, but that majority of the population have experienced at least one traumatic event per the scale that they were using to identify trauma. And so we're not even, and even if this were the case, even if it was a minority of individuals that were experiencing trauma, that's still, I mean, maybe we should get rid of that whole trope of a business case being majority, and that's why we should do it. Even if there was a minority of people who have experienced trauma, it still is important to be a leader that is aware of this. So, but and yet it's not a minority. It is a majority of individuals who faced and overcome to some degree some form of trauma in their childhood, let alone the trauma that they're going to accrue through adulthood. So we know that trauma is present in our population. And that's why healthcare and education started jumping onto it because if people are have been traumatized before they turn into adults, how do traumatized individuals interact with healthcare? If they're being traumatized from before they were 18, how is that going to impact the way they interact with education, with the classroom, the teachers, the peers? Okay, so just as gardeners tends to each plant's unique needs. Okay, I wish I was a I shouldn't write about something I don't know because I am not a gardener and probably be yeah. But a trauma-informed practices recognizes that each individual's experience has shaped their behavior and performance. We don't just enter this organization and as these blank slates ready for the organization to just write all of the culture and the values and the etc. into us and program us into that way. And in a way, when we're leading in that framework, we're creating organizational cultures where it's like how programmable are you? Can we take you and like do whatever we want to you and then you actually give us what we need? It's like the race that we're trying to do. Like even in interviews trying to show that you're malleable and that that you're willing to learn and be shaped by the culture and company. It's all really very toxic actually, but the trauma-informed practices is going to be kind of against that and that we do have culture. Organizations should still have culture, values, etc., that they socialize their new members into. And hopefully that cultural stance and those values are related to compassion and healing and understanding people and caring about people first. But who am I? I'm just an organizational psychologist with a PhD and some experience. I'm not like 70 yet, so I don't get to say I have 20 years of experience, 30, 40, 50, but I'll be there and I'll be fly just like the rest of y'all 70-year-olds. Let's go. All right, so I don't really like this part actually. I don't like this part because I feel particularly pressured. I have a PhD in psychology. I teach in the business school. Business propositions, ROI, this thing is important to particular people and to particular systems. But those systems are not systems that would actually even care about my idea anyway. Even no matter how many dollars I say you will lose by not doing this, no matter how much I say, unless it's like mandated through the government where you get like dinged, where you lose money. And actually there has been articles, um, maybe from Harvard. There have been some academic journal articles that were saying how, specifically talking about DEI though, how framing the DEI on like how much money you get is not as compelling as how much money you lose. For these businesses that are not really caring about people in the first place, they just care about the money. And there's a framework that they used for that, that I don't have the mental capacity to think of. The World Health Organization estimated that depression and anxiety alone cost the global economy $1 trillion per year in lost productivity, but who cares? No one cares about productivity. I mean, it's cool, but the more we have, the more we want, the more we have, the more we want. And that framework actually makes us less likely to adapt trauma-informed practices because trauma-informed practices takes time and you may have to sacrifice speediness for it. It's not something that can just easily happen. You would have to make some sacrifices to your process, to your outcomes in order to prioritize the mental and physical health. But subsequently, if you do prioritize that, they will be more productive. But that's just something that you would have to believe and have faith in. And if you don't have faith in it and you don't actually care, then it's not a win. But please take a screenshot of this if you are very interested and you want to have a business case to do proposals in within your organization. I think this still is important information depending on the stakeholder holder. Excuse me. Let's talk about the core principles. So we talked about why it's important. We talked about how it impacts a lot of people, but even still, it's still important. But because people experience trauma and they bring that trauma on for the rest, well, not for the rest of their lives, but for a very long time, especially unless there's some treatment happening. So the principles that we are having, we're talking about trauma-informed practices and specifically trauma-informed leadership. We want some safety, we want some trustworthiness and some transparency. We want some peer support, some collaboration, some mutuality, some empowerment, a voice, a choice. We want consideration of our culture, our history, our heritage, and gender issues. It's just a holistic understanding. Simply put, these are principles, and I think there could be more that underline what it feels like to be cared for as a person when you go to work. Just because I'm at work and I'm not home doesn't mean I have to be treated like shit. Okay? But some people's home lives just are not even nice and healthy, which is unfortunate as well. All right, so right, care about people, basically. But sometimes the framework is very helpful. Let's assess your organization. I actually want to sell this, and so give me some feedback because, like I said, this has been in the works for 2 years. No one's seen it but you. And I haven't sold it, I haven't done anything. It's just here. So, we want to build awareness. This involves educating staff about the importance of trauma-informed practices and how they can benefit the workplace. Leaders should communicate the value of a trauma-informed approach, highlighting its potential to improve employee well-being, increase productivity, and reduce turnover. In this too, this building awareness and buy-in is a perfect way for the leader to practice this form of leadership by being transparent and saying, I'm not certified trauma-informed leader here. I learned about it. I want to do better in this area. And I'm not going to have it all correct, but what I do know is that I want to be open for feedback and for communication. What I do know is that the basic level of courtesy for you and your humanity is something that I'm going to prioritize moving forward, that I may fail on, but I will always draw back to having some type of rhetoric that shows them that beyond the concepts of the core principles and beyond the numbers and the facts and figures, you have an identity invested um, uh, reality as it relates to trauma informed leadership. That this is not mandated from the top to the bottom, to side to side. This is coming from within, from a genuine interest, and you're being transparent about your process, your expectations, and even sharing your expectations of them is super important too. Through this transition, I'm transforming into and transitioning into a trauma-informed leader. And what I'm asking for you all is to give me grace as I give you grace, to be audacious in the feedback that you give, and to hold me accountable to continuing this journey. That's what I'm expecting from you. Or whatever the expectations are, making them clear up front. You're building trust and transparency, step one. This is the type of stuff that I could actually coach people through if this was the whole thing that I was selling. Because step one on paper, you could still like, I don't know, and you could literally screw it up. And unfortunately, you actually can really, really screw this up. And there's not so many times the leader gets to screw up before they lose all hope and then probably lose the team as they kind of crumble one by one, domino effect and leave the organization. When a leader approaches change and attempts to make a positive change, if that attempt even with good natured, good intentions, is failed, that really erodes the trust of that team and that leader. By the second time, it's only so many times where you can say you're going to start a diet and we see you eating cupcakes 2 days later that we're going to believe that you're going to do this diet. It's just what happens. So you should have support in this if you're wanting to do this. Establish an assessment team. Form a diverse assessment team with representatives from various departments, levels within the organization. This team should be tasked with leading the assessment process, gathering data, and providing insight, which creates this voice, which creates this significant buy-in. And these individuals that are representatives should be, this should be, step two should be articulated in step one, and individuals who are interested and want to be a representative of it should be a representative of it. We can give them training too. We can have a cohort. We can get all on the same page, the leader and the representative team, even prospects of the representative team. Like just having the representative team happen without it actually happening, just to see who shows up for meetings and trainings and what have you. We're forming this diverse assessment team is really important. That the people that want to be there are there. Because if there's someone that wants to do it and they're not chosen, you better pray to God they're not the vocal type. But even still, that kind of disappointment could also erode the process because that emotion, disappointment in your leader spreads fast. When one of your employees are disappointed in what you've done, I don't know if you can tell. Maybe it's also internalized a bit too, and also real, but it makes an impact with how the rest of the team is treating you, at least in the short term. So make sure that everybody wants to do it, can do it, and will do it, and are able to do it, and then start gathering it. And then the people that should do it, that are doing it, please work with them to get all on the same page so that they haven't turned this something so beautiful into something that is through judgment or is through this tenseness. And that's why I really want to get more into sharing like breath and intentionality and mindfulness, because when you're understanding your body, sometimes we do stuff out of a lot of like, this has to happen. And that's when we have to take a step back, because what we produce from that might not be related to our true intentions. There's something in the mix in the water that's like, that we need to kind of address so that the integrity of our actions remain there. This is why a coach is important. This is why having help through this process is important. And you can't just Google it, or you can, but like I said, you only have so many times where you can honestly try something and fail before people literally could care less about you. All right, so conduct a needs assessment. So this can be done through surveys, focus groups, and individual employee interviews. Key areas to explore are the policies and procedures. I don't who cares so much. And this is what we get when we're talking about the DEI things as well, specifically gender and race, etc., etc., etc. We look at our policy. It doesn't matter how nice and you smiling in my face and you're saying, oh, power to the man, whatever. The policy and procedures are still, creating Wage disparities are still creating significant pools against people who have been traumatized, significantly so compared to people who have not. Like, so we really need to, once we have that assessment team and start like really having these good conversations and gathering data and looking at insights and all of that, we need to now critically look through the policies and procedures, the training, education, physical, emotional safety, social support, and really kind of dive into this. What's going on? Because we're preparing ourselves for a true change, which takes time. Everyone wants to change so damn quick. So change quick, and you're about to be changed right on back to where you came from, even quicker. Because if you notice in your own personal life, this is similar to a lifestyle change. Lifestyle changes are more significant than changing the shirt or the pants on your booty. Okay? It actually has to take a lot of investment, a lot of intentionality, a lot of strategy, a lot of follow through, a lot of accountability, a lot of social support, a lot of structure, etc., etc. So, step four, analyze data and identify gaps. Look for patterns and trends that indicate where the organization excels and falls short, and make sure you're communicating this to your audience. Um, to your, sorry, not your audience, but to your employees. I have got to go. I've had my um buzzkill manager. No, I'm just kidding. My husband came into the room saying that it's time for me to pick up my son. So we haven't gotten into the roadmap, but clearly there is so much more to dive in. If you liked this, comment something so that we can actually talk back and forth. This is the place for it. If you have any questions, the comment section is for it. If you want to just encourage me to continue to put this out there, please do so with a thumbs up. And thank you for watching. And stop sharing. Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye bye.